Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to metrics. Hiwat, this is your slide, so take it away.
Yes, thank you, Karen. So metrics, data, we all know the importance of data. Data doesn't only let you, monitor and track the work that you're doing, but also helps you tell the story. Brian, you mentioned, one of the challenges is to convincing partners making initial investments. And, when you're interested in scaling up the work that you're doing, the numbers and the impact data that you're showing will potentially help you increase partnership and leverage resources. And that is also true for the federal government. So we track the program's impact through the data we collect from you guys. So we had established common metrics across the board for DMCSP project a few months ago, and tracking the work that we're doing in terms of investment in a logic model format, what we are investing financially, as well as manpower and leverage resources as well, and the investments we're making in workforce development and business assistance and the partners that are involved in that. So as you can see on the slide, we have compiled the data that we've been collecting from you guys quarterly here. And with the investments that this program has made, a total of 50 million so far, we are supporting 11 manufacturing communities who have also been able to leverage, in addition to the non-federal match of 25 million, a growing number of financial resources, so far tracking about 83 million invested additionally in the communities. And so far, you're reporting that about 21 million have been invested in workforce development and 49 million invested in business assistance. And there is a growing number of partners that you've been able to bring along, over 390 partners, and growing over time. The partnerships that you have with the manufacturing institutes are also great. 11 manufacturing institutes partnering with each manufacturing communities. And as products, you're conducting case studies, developing toolkits, conducting these webinars and workshops, and producing marketing communication tools for both business assistance and workforce development. And this slide shows you the numbers that we have so far. It's really great that we've been able to reach over 1,500 industries to provide technical assistance, and over 32,000 workforce have been trained with a heavy emphasis of creating workforce pipeline, K-12 engagement, also assisting in workforce as well. And there's a lot of activity relating to career awareness programs as well. What's really exciting is to see that the impact this program is having already. And the outcome numbers that you see here obviously is underreported because you're still implementing your projects. But so far, over 400 industries have been able to increase their cybersecurity maturity levels. New defense technology products have been developed or improved, and over 1,000 small and medium-sized enterprises have been assisted so far to enter the defense sector. And new numbers are also coming in terms of improving procurement process efficiency, helping to reduce the procurement processes, amount of time it takes, and also saving the defense sector procurement costs as well. In terms of workforce development, we have over 470 defense manufacturing jobs that have been created, and over 1,500 manufacturing jobs that have been saved. it's great to see these numbers. I just wanted to show you here the data that you have been submitting our way is helping us tell the story. So keep doing it. Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Hiwat. I guess we're going to go to our next presenter, which is Eileen.
Hey, I'm back on. Thank you, Hiwat, for that. I understood from you folks that we wanted to talk really about the successes and challenges, some examples of successes and challenges of capturing metrics. So instead of us going through each metric here and telling you about our project and what we're doing, we do want to focus this. We were thinking of focusing this in really two buckets that we can present on: the metrics that we've really had success capturing, and then metrics that have been challenging, and then love to learn from others as to what works for them and what's not working. For us, 12 of these are number-based metrics, and we've had a lot more success capturing the quantitative data because these are ones that have specific activities and deliverables, and they're in the purview for our grantees to quantify. 4 of these have been a little bit more challenging to capture data on because 2 of these are really owned by DoD, and the impact of 2 others have really been measurable, or more measurable in a long-term basis. And so I want to share the breakdown of how the ones we've experienced most success on. In the impact area on business assistance, we've experienced a lot of success capturing cybersecurity capability and capacity. Again, that's number driven, for example, how many individuals or companies you train, and so forth. Product development and improvement has been successful for us to capture, and small and medium-sized manufacturing engagement. On the workforce area, we've seen success across all of them. So they're all part of our purview. They're all part of our scopes and activities and deliverables, and really something we own to carry out. So I do want to just start with an example of how we've had product development improvement to see if we can get some engagement going on other ideas from others. And I want to pass it on actually to Ed Hendricks from NextFlex, who is our Manufacturing Institute on the grant, and see if you can share, Ed, some of your successes in capturing these metrics as an example.
So under the California Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program, NextFlex is supporting predominantly emerging businesses within the California Defense Industrial Base. And we're doing this by providing access to cutting edge, flexible hybrid electronics development and manufacturing capability. And we're also attempting to bring them into the flexible hybrid Electronics Manufacturing Innovation Institute ecosystem. And the bulk of our efforts have involved introducing FHE technology to small manufacturers and improving upon device function and manufacturing processes. And this is mainly for early prototyping efforts. We've generated great success stories regarding outreach to these California defense manufacturing companies. And we have done a quantitative assessment of the number of defense workers, organizations, and communities assisted through the workshops, webinars, and technical assistance that we've provided thus far. And Eileen mentioned this in terms of how easy or how we've been able to collect those metrics. These defense industrial organizations also provide tangible impact success stories of what the program has meant to them and all the things that the program's enabled. But given the work that NextFlex has supported is early pre-production prototypes, the impact on the defense procurement costs and the defense procurement processes can only be qualitatively projected. And this is based on the known benefits of flexible hybrid electronics technology as opposed to traditional electronics manufacturing. And also we can speculate based on the strengthening of US-based manufacturing and the added competition. However, at this stage, we're somewhat limited on what impact we actually do provide currently to the defense procurement processes. And back to you, Eileen.
Great, thank you. So we've also had a lot of success capturing the workforce metrics shown here on this slide. So I wanted to pass it on to our deans and our leads from our California community college system to share some examples of successes. Jose, would you be able to share why you've had some successes capturing and maybe tying to some?
Yes, yes, I can. And so I work with El Camino College, and as a community college, we measure all these workforce metrics. Many of these metrics are tied to funding, so we have systems and staff in place to capture them. Metrics like upskilling, internships, and apprenticeships are captured to report as part of performance-based funding. For example, we have an apprenticeship grant with the state that actually supports 153 apprentices for aerospace and defense manufacturers, and they're building things like satellites, launch vehicles, and aircraft structures. So those things we capture on a daily basis. For K-12 engagement and career awareness, these are, for us, are leading indicators, because the more we do of these activities, the more students enroll in the college. It's really marketing for us. And we actually involve aerospace and defense companies to help mentor these students through a K-12 engagement project that we have called Project Lead the Way. It's a pre-engineering program where we have about 1,000 students going through 12 units of college credit. So by the time they graduate from the high school, they are well on their way to an engineering degree. And so we're excited about that. We were a little impacted by COVID, but we're starting to build up again. And also we've done gap analysis. And to give you an example of some of the stuff we've done around smart manufacturing, we spent a year basically running focus groups to understand the competencies and skills needed by industry specific to the operator, technician, engineer, and manager in terms of smart manufacturing. And so basically these are the skills needed for them so they could adopt smart manufacturing for their companies. And so based on these competencies, we've built curriculum and we've trained individuals. In addition to that, we've also developed a post-bachelor smart manufacturing professional certificate. It's 5 courses, 160 hours. And basically the first course is smart manufacturing, where we introduce smart manufacturing and cyber physical systems, as well as digital twins, simulation for manufacturing processes. The next course is data analytics and processing, where we actually teach machine learning, general data analytic methods and basic concepts in machine learning and deep learning. We also have a course in human machine teaming, where we go into natural intelligence, human models of machines, and machine capabilities, as well as artificial intelligence. And the fourth course is really around smart digital supply chains, where we've developed a smart toolbox for supply chains, and we introduce Supply Chain 4.0 and the effects of digital supply chain on a systemic sustainability model. And the last course is really our capstone project, where we have individuals actually go through a course and they pick a project where they actually utilize what they learned in the previous 4 courses. And we do this in partnership with Cal State University Northridge. And to give you a sense of what accomplishments we've done through workforce training specific to smart manufacturing, we've assisted over 47 manufacturers. We've trained over 500 employees in smart manufacturing, data analytics, data visualization, business intelligence, machine learning, cybersecurity, big data, and supply chain optimization. And I want share with you that we've done this all out of our Smart Manufacturing Innovation Center in partnership with SESME, the Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Institute out of UCLA. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck Easton from the California Community College System.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. So I'm going to speak specifically to the success we've had around measuring the performance metric for internships. So I oversee the business and entrepreneurship sector for the California Community College System for the Economic and Workforce Development Program. So I work with all 117 of the colleges on the Career Technical Education Program. On CADENCE, I oversee one of the 15 projects. It's around placing student interns and faculty externs at DoD cyber companies to assist them with commercializing dual-use applications. And where we've had success, I think, and kind of the unique thing we've done is each one of our 117 colleges have a local foundation, but we also have a statewide foundation called the Foundation for California Community Colleges. And they have a program called Career Catalyst, where they can act as the employer of record for interns. So we contracted with them for this project, so we have one statewide employer of record across the state for all of our interns. And then each one of the participating colleges assigns a timekeeper supervisor, who normally one of the faculty, or it can be someone at the work experience program, that has to approve the students' timesheets every other Wednesday, basically. And that goes to the foundation. They pay the students. And then I get an invoice for all the student hours, which we then automate a process to capture all the hours and dollar amounts. So I can have a dashboard that I can see how many hours and how many students we have at each one of our DoD cyber companies. So we can track things basically down to the penny for that. So it makes it easier for us to have this one employer of record across the whole state for that. And for our project, we've so far completed 6 of the 10 colleges have completed their internships. We have a 7th one under the way. And but yeah, it's been a great program, and we try to keep it very simple by having this single employer of record, so it makes it really easy for the DoD cyber company to participate, because we handle all the workers' comp and all the payroll part of it. So that's the success we've had for internships. And I'll turn it over to Alan, who's my counterpart for advanced manufacturing. He also has an internship project.
Thank you, Chuck. I work with the California Community College's advanced manufacturing sector. And I just want to state that California community colleges are moving very rapidly towards industry-led skills panels that are replacing faculty-led advisories to promote curriculum development that actually support the needs of industry. Regional subject matter experts, formerly referred to as deputy sector navigators or regional directors of employer engagement, continue to promote industry and faculty partnerships for workforce development. We have developed a statewide network of guided pathway regional coordinators to create a highly structured approach to student success. We actually track all these metrics in the Vision for Success dashboard that we call Launchboard in our state. Our state also invests $240 million each year into the Strong Workforce Program projects at both the K-12 and community college levels. This promotes secondary to post-secondary collaboration. We tend to align those projects between the two organizations. And finally, Grow Apprenticeships California, the California Apprenticeships Initiative, supports creating apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships in both traditional and non-traditional areas, with $30 million in grant funding for the current fiscal year. One of these apprenticeship programs has been very successful in the high desert area of Southern California with one of our large aerospace manufacturers. And now back to you, Eileen.
Thank you. To get through this, we wanted to also share with you some of the 2 more challenging metrics that have been for us to capture, as it's been really hard for us to find available data, and we keep going in circles on this one as we realize it's actually 2 metrics that are really 2 data points that are not owned by us. They're really owned by DoD, and DoD, we struggle to have DoD share it with us, and the DIB as well. And those are procurement cost reductions and procurement process efficiencies. And so now I wanted to pass it on to some of our grantees, Chris, Jose, Chuck, and Lisa as well, to talk about some of the challenges that we have faced and why we think it's owned by DoD. Chris, passing it to you.
Thank you, Eileen. My name is Chris Boothie. I work for CMTC, which is the MEP here in California. And maybe it'll sound like the scientist in all of us, but when we look at what's a metric is something that is very it's based on real data, and it's based on data that's observable and measurable, attributable, and current. And that's all the things that we've talked about so far. My counterparts here at Cadence have been talking about things that fit all of those categories. And when we get into the procurement cost reduction and process efficiencies, if we take that quite literally about what it's trying to do, the procurement process is owned by DoD. So the person who would be able to say, did we really reduce a cost, would probably be a contract manager inside DoD. Or it could be a person who is on a particular kind of a contract who is a supplier to DoD, where he says, yes, I reduced my cost to the Department of Defense based on that. But many of the people that we deal with are on firm fixed price contracts. And so even if they did have a cost reduction or maybe a manufacturing efficiency, not necessarily the same as process efficiency for DoD, that would not be reflected in a cost savings back to DoD because they're on a firm fixed price. Now, when you get up to the prime levels, that would be the case. But most of the people that we deal with are subcontractors, or if they're in the, remember, there are two different innovation, or actually two different supply chains that we talked about a while ago, which was there's a production supply chain, and that is where it is a known entity, it's a known manufacturing capability. And then it is bid to usually the lowest cost bidder, and that goes through a prime and then out to subcontractors. The prime is the one that really holds the key there to, is it a actual cost reduction that is passed back to DoD? But for the other people, it's not. Now, when you go to the innovation supply chain, which is what Ed Hendricks was talking about a minute ago, that's looking at something that is in an early TRL level, probably doesn't even register yet on an MRL level. It might.
Chris, sorry, can you clarify what TRL and MRL is? Sorry.
Oh, yes. Technology readiness level, which is a maturation of a technology into a level where it reaches both prototype and then field testing, and then ultimately a manufacturing level of capability. After that, you get to, or in tandem, it's a manufacturing level, which you generally pass through a maturation again until you're able to do not only low rate initial production, but do full rate production as well. Sorry about that. So when we look at these, if it isn't those things, if it isn't something that we can either observe, measure, we can attribute to the work that we were doing, or if it isn't current, then we look at it as it's speculative. It's something that has not happened already or is happening in the current day. It's going to happen in the future. And when you deal with a production schedule or a innovation of a new program, the work may happen now that is going to contribute to a savings that could be 2 years, 4 years, 6 years out in the DoD life cycle of both procurement and production. And so that's a speculative judgment. And so when we try to do that, it becomes more difficult. We might ask for a DoD person to say, would you speculate what this would do? It's not in that it's actually happened yet. Or if we go to a manufacturer and say, would you speculate? As long as we clearly define what we're asking for, then some will be willing to say that, and others will really be not, because it may contain proprietary information or information of, say, trade secrets that they do not want to divulge. And of course, we can't force them to divulge it. But we really want to make this differentiation between something that is current and something that is a forward-looking statement and is therefore speculation about its assumptions and its attribution. I would say that there's a lot more to it, but these are difficult to be factual and scientific about, which is what we want to be for DoD.
Thank you, Chris. Jose, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so for my project, we provide upskill training in process optimization. And so one of the projects that comes to mind is something we did with a defense company where we provided Lean Six Sigma, 100 hours of courseware that employees participate in. They pick a project on the factory floor that they want to address. And in this particular case, they chose a carbon fiber composite part that really took 3 days to produce because there was a lot of high rework issues. So throughout this course, they actually looked at optimizing the process and were able to actually reduce the production time to 4 hours. And that's a great story to tell. But if you wanted me to quantify that specifically to cost reductions, I would be unable to do that. And I believe that the manufacturer would not want to share their cost with me. So in terms of trying to quantify this, it's impossible for me to do, but I could share a really good story. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Chuck.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I oversee the project around internships and externships for dual use innovation. So I'm kind of coming at this from an angle of how can dual use innovation help reduce procurement costs? And our project specifically worked with DoD SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Companies. And if you're not familiar with the SBR program, the purpose of that is to tap into the innovation that small business can use to help solve problems that government agencies might have. So the contracting agencies like the DoD or NASA, where they propose a problem and then you come up with a solution, you have to show as a small business that first you solve the DoD's problem, but they want to see that there's also other commercial applications for it. So there's other what we call dual use applications for it. And when you're putting together your either phase 1 or what's called phase 2 grants, you'll have what's called a commercialization plan. It might be a like 15-page plan. So you need to show what other commercial applications are there for this technology innovation. So that does benefit the DoD, because if the DoD is the only one investing in a particular innovation or technology, then the cost is naturally going to be higher. But inherently, if you have a lot of other applications, you can spread it across. There's other people investing in the R&D. That's going to reduce the overall costs. So the challenge, though, is how do you quantify all that? So that's what we're listing this under the challenge section. But definitely inherently, we know that there's going to be some cost reductions there and reductions for R&D costs as well. So that's what I wanted to share under this particular topic.
Lisa, if you want to wrap it up for us on this one.
Sure. Lisa Easterly, President and CEO of San Diego Cyber Center of Excellence. We are a nonprofit that looks to solve workforce, economic development, and infrastructure challenges in partnership with industry, academia, as well as government. And I'd like to provide kind of a silver lining here, because I think for future iterations, with what my colleagues are discussing, there's incredible challenges because these two particular metrics are truly owned by the acquisition. They're owned by a Department of Defense. And so as a partner, what we're really able to do is to help them identify needs and really hone in, and then be able to help them as their practical partner on the ground to pull in potential solutions from industry, from academia, and then be able to work with them to identify new processes and procedures that can potentially then become cost reduction or efficiency centers for them. And so an example of the project that we have as part of CADENCE is to work with NAVWAR, which is the U.S. Navy's Naval Warfare Systems Command, to identify particular challenges they're facing in these particular priority areas that we've been discussing throughout today: artificial intelligence and machine learning, 5G, cybersecurity, microelectronics, and space, and to really be able to then bring in solutions through partnerships with even other DoD sources, such as the National Security Innovation Network, NavalX, and so forth, to really tap into where these solutions lie, and then be able to come back and then identify these opportunities. Now, this is outside of a normal procurement process. These are challenges that have particular prize challenges and pots that enhance the experience for those participating. But ultimately, what it does do is it brings all these technologies to the forefront for these acquisitions so that they can make decisions more expeditedly. They can also look at efficiencies in their own processes. So ultimately, there is an opportunity, again, for these grantees and participants in these larger programs to be able to affect change. But as my colleagues have mentioned, we are not typically privy to the ultimate outcomes of the literal data metrics. So with that, Eileen, I turn it back to you.
Yeah, so it sounds like we can capture stories, and it's somewhat laborious to capture them, but it's harder to capture numbers. That's what I'm hearing from everyone on that one.
Eileen, thanks so much. I'm going to bring it to the next presenter, just sort of a little off schedule as far as time. So I think Tony is the next presenter.
Yes, ma'am. Tony Schmitz here. I'll get us back on schedule. Hopefully,
Okay.
I have
Don't worry
two,
about it. Just go ahead.
two examples to present, and I can echo everything we just heard. It's challenging to get these numbers, and I think there's a certain amount of trust that's necessary to make that happen. So, example one. I have the Southeastern Advanced Machine Tool Network. So this is a discrete part manufacturer in the greater Tennessee Valley. And so as part of the collaboration between our partners, they adopted a new software to reduce their quoting time and cost. I've listed those two as Company A and Company B for the reasons that we just heard, because companies are nervous about giving up a competitive advantage by releasing information like this. So Company A is the manufacturer, Company B is the software provider, and there was an adoption. I knew this happened, and so I contacted Company A, the discrete part manufacturer, and I said, can you tell me about the outcomes? And what they said was, we observed a 50% reduction in our quoting time. And so then I pressed them for some more details, and they told me, okay, we have 2 people that handle our quoting for all jobs. That was the information that I obtained. And so then I went from there as an engineering solution. And when I reported this information to Hewat and the team, I said, okay, this is how I got there. So I wanted to be conservative in the numbers that I reported. So I said, okay, with 2 full-time personnel, I estimated they didn't spend all their time quoting. And so I used 30 hours per week as my assumption of the amount of time they spent quoting jobs. So the 50% reduction got us to 15 hours per week. And then it was a 20-week reporting interval. So I was able to estimate then some time savings. And so then based on discussions with Company A about what those personnel cost them in terms of total costs, direct and indirect. And so that value was $250,000 for that time of those personnel. And so then for a 50% savings, reduce that cost to $125,000, assuming that they could use that time in other ways to benefit the company in a similar way. So that was the way I proceeded. And this was simply an example to underscore the challenges we just heard about, to say, well, how do you proceed with partial information? So there's an example. Example 2 was another discrete part manufacturer. And in this case, they adopted a new technology. They implemented in their machining centers on the shop floor. And what that new technology enabled was reduced setup time for their jobs, and subsequently improved part quality. I only focused on the setup time because the part quality was really hard to quantify. So here's what they told me. This was information that was provided by Company A that adopted the new technology. So they said, using the new technology, they gave me what they said were minimum time savings. Could be more. This was the minimum amount that they were saving in their production facilities. They were saving 0.75 hours per setup. And they said at minimum, we'd have 15 setups per week. They gave me a rate for their machinist, which was $100 per hour. And then I used the 20-week reporting period to estimate the labor savings, and then the same information for time savings. What do you learn from these scenarios? The adoptions occurred because of the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program. So I host these tech demo events where I show technologies and encourage partners to learn more and attempt to de-risk the adoption of those technologies by being able to learn more about it in an environment where it doesn't cost them anything. And I'm not selling them anything. So it's an unbiased environment. So because of that, they saw the technology and they performed the adoptions. And so I had to reach out to them to request the time and cost savings. In fact, I did this to all my companies. These were a couple that I got concrete responses from, and the companies were very sensitive. It was multiple conversations that got me to this data. And then they had, requests for restrictions on how I would share this information. And so there's a certain amount of trust that's necessary there. And then they were willing to provide the information because they trusted that we wouldn't share it in an inappropriate way that would sacrifice their competitive advantage. So that's what I had. Not easy, but these were a couple of examples.
Thanks so much, Tony. That was very interesting. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one, Karen, just a remark here based on what you just explained, Tony. So the data you have come up with regarding procurement came primarily while keeping the identity of the manufacturers discrete. The data came primarily from the manufacturers. That kind of, I suppose, minimizes the request of data directly from DoD, so that it is good to see this methodology here. Is there any challenge for obtaining similar data from your other manufacturers for CADENCE, for example?
Are you asking me or other entities?
Other folks?
This is Ed Hendricks. I guess I can discuss this as it relates to our projects because there could be some similarities in terms of process improvements. However, one of our challenges would be that we are supporting an emerging technology, and so the basis of comparison from a cost reduction point of view is really not possible. So, for example, one of the projects we've supported developing a capability of printing electronic devices in space, and this would be a capability that wasn't available, and therefore difficult to ascertain how we've done a cost reduction. So again, I understand the capability of as it relates to looking at an existing process and improving upon it. But when you look at something that's emerging, it might be somewhat challenging and as one of my colleagues said, very speculative and not exactly scientific.
Yep, I understand. Good to know. Thank you.